Hello everyone, welcome to Dnyanadeep Academy. This is our daily answer writing series for geography optional. So daily we post one question on our Telegram channel and on next day we discuss this question on our YouTube platform. Now let us see what is the question for today's discussion. So I have this question from paper 1 section B, point number 3, that is population and settlement. So just understand from where we are taking this question. So I have paper 1 section B and topic is population and settlement. Now in population and settlement we have one more subtopic, that is demographic attributes, and in that demographic attributes we are asked related to various demographic attributes and their consequences or their importance. So here I have a question which is asking explain the relationship between net reproductive rate and true replacement level of population. So there are two attributes which are given here. Attribute 1, that is net reproductive rate. Fine. So we will have to define what this net reproductive rate is. We will have to make it clear what this exactly means. Further, there is one more attribute which has been asked, that is true replacement level of population. So you will again have to define what this true replacement level of population is, and you will have to explain what does that mean, right? So that will be your first part of the answer. Next, you will have to establish a relationship. So you have to identify there is some relationship between these two attributes. They affect our population on a large scale, and there is some relation between these. So you will have to mention how these two attributes are related to each other and how they affect our population at large scale. Fine. So this is first part of the question. Now next part of the question is asking about consequences of declining fertility rate. Now when it comes to declining fertility rate, this is a global phenomenon these days. Most of the countries in the West or most of the developed countries are experiencing declining fertility rate. Now you can very well understand from where this question has been asked. So if you look at this question, this is a UPSC PYQ. Now this is not something I have framed by myself. So when it comes to declining fertility, global phenomena is there. Contemporary discussions are there regarding declining fertility, and then there are consequences also at local level, at national level, as well as at global scale, and that is why this particular topic becomes very important. Now when it comes to declining fertility, this is measured in terms of net reproductive rate and replacement level of population. Fine. And that is how you are knowing how important these two attributes are. Now how can I introduce for this question? Let us understand how to introduce. Now already I have told you when it comes to declining fertility rate, it's a contemporary issue. Every month or two you will find one or the other article talking about declining fertility. Now you can borrow some fact and figure from there. You can borrow some examples from current affairs, and the best way to start these type of questions are regarding current affairs or contemporary issues. Right? You go for any current affairs or you go for any contemporary issue and you start with that, because whole of this question is framed around that particular issue, right? So you will have to understand when it comes to introducing, fundamental thing is if you understand the source of question or why this question has been asked, you will be in a better position to introduce. So we have already defined you can define something when it comes to introduction. You can provide some fact when it comes to introduction. But one more approach you can take, just understand from where this question has been asked and then try to frame your introduction around that particular phenomena or that particular source. So I can go for recent demographic change in the world. I can go for demographic shifts across the globe. I can go for demographic challenges faced by the world. So if I have to choose between these three, I will better prefer demographic challenges because they are continuously new. So I'll get something or the else from current affairs or contemporary issues, right? So when introducing, I'll mention what are the demographic challenges this world is facing, and these demographic challenges are a result of declining fertility or declining net reproductive rate. So that way you can backlink with the question. So again, this is a better practice. If you can reiterate terms which are used in question in your introduction, that will be considered a good introduction. Fine. So try to reiterate all these terms and terminology. Further, let's move on to body. In body part, what I am supposed to do? I am supposed to define and explain what this net reproductive rate is, and then I am also supposed to explain what this true level of replacement is. Now, if we go into the concept simply, when it comes to net reproductive rate, it is the number of daughters which are born to a woman. Fine. And when it comes to fertility rate, there are two rates: net reproductive rate. So net reproductive rate is the number of daughters which are born to a particular woman in whole of her reproductive life. Fine. Now when it comes to fertility rate, or we also term it as total fertility rate or TFR, this is also in news. Fine. So total fertility rate is the number of children born to a woman in whole of her productive life. Fine. So now there is a very slight difference between two. When it comes to net reproductive rate, I am talking about only daughters. When it comes to total fertility rate, I am talking about both son and daughter. Now you will ask why we are differentiating like this. Now when it comes to population projection, if I have to see after 20 years or 30 years, what will be the state of population of a particular geographical area, I will have to consider present day composition of population or the present day trends of birth. Fine. So just understand, when it comes to total fertility rate, I am considering male child as well as female child. I am not distinguishing either of it. And when it comes to replacement level is what? Let us say, let us first understand what this replacement level means. So if there are two people in the family, one male, one female, right? So husband wife is there, and this husband wife is also having one more, let's say there could be father and mother of this particular person. So we have a family of 4. Now when these two people will give birth to 2 more children, right? So there are 2 more children who are born in the family. So total number of people in the family, earlier it was 4, now it is 6. But with the passage of time, as these parents gets old, so there will be some mortality, and once there is a mortality of these old population, again we have a family of 4. So the population size remains the same. Clear? So if I look at total fertility here, so total fertility rate is 2 because this woman has given birth to 2 children. So my total fertility rate becomes 2. Now when it comes to replacement level, why I said there is something called as replacement level of fertility rate. So when total fertility rate is 2.1, it is called as replacement level of fertility. Fine, because the population size remains the same. If there are 2 births, there will be 2 mortalities also, 2 deaths also. So overall population does not change, right? So that is how you are calculating replacement level of fertility. Now when it comes to net reproductive rate, we are only considering daughters here. Fine, why we are only considering daughters? The fundamental reason here is, let us assume if I go for total fertility rate, I have 2 children born and both of them are male. Fine, both of them are male. And in whole of the population, whatever new births are taking place, this is a hypothetical situation. If in a group of population, if all of the new births are that of male, what will happen? Because these male are not going to give birth to any new children. Fine. Who is going to give birth? It is the women. And that is why when it comes to net reproductive rate, we talk about daughters. And when net reproductive rate is 1, we will call it as replacement level rate. So in a given population, if net reproductive rate is 1, that population will remain stable. But when it comes to total fertility rate, we have different number. So when total fertility rate of a given population group is 2.1, its population will remain stable. If it goes beyond 2.1, population will increase. If it goes below 2.1, population will decrease. Similarly, for net reproductive rate also, if net reproductive rate is more than 1, population will increase. If net reproductive rate is less than 1, population is supposed to decrease. So that is something we are going to know when it comes to these two terms. Now, what is the relation? So you just have to explain this particular part. How you can have a total fertility rate more than 2 or 2.1, but if your net reproductive rate is less than 1, that would imminently mean that there will be decline in population. Fine. And vice versa. If there is total fertility rate which is less than 2, and if we have net reproductive rate more than 1, you cannot really say whether population will increase or population will decrease. So this is the relation you are supposed to establish when it comes to this particular question. Now, while you do so, you will also have to give some examples. Give example of West European countries. Give example of Japan, right? These are the best case scenario. Japan, if there is Japan, South Korea, so these are the best examples which can be quoted, where we have very low net reproductivity rate as well as very low true replacement level of population, and ultimately what is happening, their population is declining. So this is first part of the answer. So here I have given how relation can be established between the two. Now, when it comes to consequences, you can directly mention the consequences one after another, but I have a better approach here. I go typically for some subsections. So if I am talking about consequences, I will talk about demographic consequences. I'll talk then about economic consequences, social, governance, and political consequences. In between, you can also add some micro points or micro topics further. Now, most importantly, when you provide these consequences, you are supposed to give some case studies. Talk about, again, I have like these repetitive topics or repetitive case studies. Best case study I find is that of Japan. You can also go for, let us say, Germany, or you can go for some other European country or typically West European country, and all of them are having net reproductive rate resulting into declining population, and as a result of declining population they have some of these consequences. So then there will come a debate of migration, there will come a debate of shrinking economies, there will come a debate of some social conflicts which are happening there. Aging of population is a big phenomena in all of these countries, and then there are problems associated with that aging of population. So that kind of case study can be built around this particular topic and for the given question, right? So that is how you are supposed to approach this question. Now, talking about conclusion, just try to have some way forward type of conclusion where you will suggest what can be done here onwards, right? So that is my answer to the given question. I'll move on to next question. Now, next question is very simple. You just have to frame your answer properly. You just need to know how content needs to be put in this particular question. Question is asking how demographic attributes, or what is the importance of demographic attribute in development planning. Fine. So whatever planning we do for the betterment of society, for the betterment of nation, for the purpose of development, that is developmental planning. Okay. Then I also have demographic attributes, so I'll have to explain demographic attributes also. So I already told you what demographic attributes are. Now, how you can introduce this question? So I don't have as such any fact or figure around this particular topic. In my opinion, better way is to go for the topic itself. Just directly start with demographic attributes. Say what demographic attributes are. Right? Because in the later part, anyway, you have to establish a relationship between demographic attributes and that of development planning. So that is why I'll not bring in this discussion right at the beginning of the answer. I'll just plainly simply go for what demographic attributes are. First explain that. Later on, explain what these demographic or developmental planning means. So I'll just explain in a lucid language what development planning is. Once you are explained, once you have explained these particular things, move on to the main part of the answer. Now, I love tables. There are many sections in geography where you can straight away make tables and put your answer. Fine. So geography is also about these type of creativities, because there is a lot of content sometime and that needs to be shrink and put in a very precise manner. So tables are a best way. So here what I am doing, and that is something you need to learn when it comes to writing this answer. If you are asked to establish a relationship between these two or any two components, what I will do, I have done demographic attributes here. I'll explain demographic attributes here, and I will explain importance of each and every single demographic attribute separately. Right? One mistake which you might do, first you will write demographic attributes and then you will explain the importance of demographic attributes in a very combined way. So that is also fine. It's not like you have erred or something, right? Your answer is still correct, but this is more direct. Each and every single demographic attribute has a different consequence or has its own consequence, right? And that is why I am making sure that I am addressing each and every single demographic attribute separately. So make this table, write demographic attributes and address what is their importance in development planning. Fine. So that way you can proceed with this question. Again, give some example, give some case study. Best example will come from India only. Talk about some population policies, right? Identify how these demographic attributes are helpful in making population policies, and finally have some suggestions, give some way forward, and with these way forwards and suggestions you can very well conclude this particular issue. Fine. So that was about today's questions. We'll see you in next session. Thank you everyone.